Welcome to Toffee TV. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Tony Sampson, who is part of Chicago Toffees, but does lots of work for the North American Toffees. He is a Scouser. He lives in the US now, and was a huge part of what Everton have just done over in the US as part of that tour. So, Tony, thanks for taking the time, mate.
Great to see you again, Baz. You look a little bit more sober than the last time I saw you.
That was you. I was well sober. That's because you weren't. But that was fine because you were having a good time. And I appreciate that. So, listen, Everton have just been over in the US for whatever it was, 12 days. The football wasn't amazing, fair play, although finished with a decent performance against United. But I thought a lot of the other stuff was really good. New York, time in New York, time in Chicago, your place, and obviously finished off in Atlanta. From my perspective, the fan events I thought were really well thought out, really well attended. So how did you sort of assess it all, given you do coordinate a lot of this stuff? You speak to supporters clubs from all over the US as well. So being there in person, how do you think it went?
I'd agree with you, to be honest. I thought the off-field stuff was really good. Let's not talk about the football.
Yeah, forget that.
And I think, as you know, a lot goes into the planning of this kind of months in advance. So, you've already mentioned the supporter clubs in New York, New Jersey, Chicago, obviously, and also Atlanta. They put a lot of effort in as volunteers to try and showcase, their local club, but also obviously Everton as well, as much as they can. So, and I thought, that work paid off, to be honest. Obviously, it's in partnership with lots of other people. Obviously, the football club and the engagement team there, some of the corporate partners as well, they played a big role in that. Obviously, the likes of yourselves that came out and did the stint as well. So I thought it went really well, and that's kind of consistent with the feedback that I got from people that were there. And what was nice was there was obviously a load of Blues that came over from Liverpool that maybe hadn't had the opportunity before to kind of sample what it's like to support Everton abroad. And I think some of them, and they were telling me, they were blown away by kind of the depth and strength of passion and support for Everton out here, and got a glimpse into kind of what that potential could be. I think so that was really good, and also to get them to meet loads of Blues there. And then there's obviously the supporter clubs that have got a firm base out here, and they turn up in the pubs and the bars every week to watch. But it was great for them to be able to make new friendships and connections with, as I say, people coming from back home, but also those that travelled from all over the US as well. I met people from Arizona, New Orleans, Philly. There was people that used the opportunity of having the club out there to go and get their fix of Everton. And I think that's what made it special is that lots of people don't get the chance to get over to Liverpool to watch the team. So having the club out there is really special, because for some it gives them a once in a lifetime opportunity to feel part of that big Everton family and community, be part of the events, as I said, strengthen that connection with the football club that they followed from so far away, and hopefully kind of tie it into the club even further and more long lasting. And also there was some that I don't think know they're Evertonians yet, and they're still kind of choosing. They're big football fans, but they observed in and around some of the events, what's all this noise about and what's it about. So hopefully it was a way of trying to reel them into Everton and touch them in a way that we know this football club can. So look, I thought it was really good. Lots of people there. The turnout in Atlanta in particular, I think was excellent. There were lots of US Blues, I think, that travelled in there. I thought there was a good blend of events as well. The typical kind of welcome events in each of the bars, but also the cruise in Chicago was something that I haven't seen before. I think that was done in Australia when the club went out there a few years ago. But again, it's just something like a little bit different. The tailgate in Atlanta, again, that's kind of how lots of US sports fans follow their team. So again, that was a bit of an eye opener and a different way to engage supporters. So look, I think as I say, off the field, I thought it was a real opportunity to showcase what it's like out here, the strength and the passion and the love for the club. But also, I think we showed those that don't know Everton what we're all about.
Yeah, it was incredible seeing the amount of Evertonians there. I mean, you know, my missus was over there and couldn't believe what she was seeing from, you know, Everton tops everywhere and so many supporters in like Reds Bar and stuff before the game in New Jersey, and it just got bigger, didn't it? Obviously AJ Hudson's, and a big shout out to Jamie there, who was fantastic at the bar owner, massive Evertonian there. And Atlanta was something else. Limerick Junction was up another level for the amount of American Toffees there that from all over the place. So a huge thank you to everyone who come up and said nice things about the channel and wanted to meet and everything and have a chat, because they come literally from everywhere, didn't they, all over the US. Starting off sort of in New York, what do you think? I mean, I think the football club, it has to be said, put some great events on. It really did, and there was, you know, good turnout to everything, wasn't it? The Men in Blazers event as well with Roger Bennett on a Friday night in New York was fantastic as well. And obviously we had James Tarkowski, Illiman and Jai, Seamus Coleman, David Moyes all at that event as well, and brilliantly sort of well attended. How much planning goes into that from you? Because obviously it was months before. I think it was it around February when Everton confirmed they were going, or March. How much planning did that take to sort of pull everything together?
Yeah, I mean, so what we do, I think we've talked before about the fact we've got there's now 45 supporter groups out here, and what we've been doing in the last number of years is, you know, the strength of support has always been strong, as you know, and people like David Kurtz that started that kind of Everton USA movement ages ago, they were the foundations that were put in place. But what we've tried to do in the last few years is build on that, and rather than kind of have that kind of a bit disconnected and fragmented, is try and bring those groups together so that we can, you know, do more together and be a bit more proactive about the stuff that, you know, that we're planning. So again, I think I've shared on the channel before, you know, we meet on a monthly basis, the supporter group leads, to think through what can we do during the season. We've got kind of our own membership program where, again, we sort of try and build that community and connect it with others, and we put on kind of our own events. So, you know, we've got that kind of infrastructure, if you like, to sort of try and, you know, do that plan. And so to your question, you know, we started almost as soon as we heard that the club was going to be out here, and that involved, you know, bringing those groups together, and primarily the three locations where, you know, we knew the club was going to be, and start that. And it, you know, it's like everything, you know, it's brainstorming ideas. What can we do? The club is always very open and kind of listening to, you know, what might be done. They see us as the kind of people that, you know the areas, know the people, know the supporters. So, you know, they do kind of, you know, encourage us to kind of put anything on the table. You know, our focus is more around kind of the supporter-led events and what can we do in our local bars. And again, what is great, I'm glad that you said thank you to, you know, the bar owners. You know, they're up at 6 o'clock and 4:30 and all the rest of it every week. So it's also a great opportunity for them to, you know, to get something from it as well. So, you know, again, big shout out to them. So that's what's happened is, and then we've met on a kind of fairly regular basis, sometimes just as the supporter group leads, planning on it. Where can we go? What's the location? What can we do? Is there anything specific to, you know, New York, Atlanta or Chicago that we can kind of build into the program that's very relevant? Maybe give Everton a little bit of an edge. Something different part of their story. You know, one of the things that we did in Chicago, for example, obviously loads of Evertonians out here are really drawn in, not just by the heritage and the history of the football club and, you know, the people. It's also about kind of what it does and gives back in relation to the community and what have you. So, and one of the things we decided to do was work with some of the other supporter clubs in each of the cities. So Man U, Bournemouth, West Ham, in each of the different cities, and do a charitable thing. We launched a food drive there. We went and volunteered in Chicago, one of the food pantries there that involves some of the club staff as well. So again, it allows us to think about things that we might do that maybe some of the other clubs, that gives us a little bit of an edge and get some coverage in there. And then we've met on a very, very regular basis. Sometimes things don't fall into place until the very last minute. So you know, there's it, but you know, people take it really seriously. You know, they want to make sure that, particularly those that are visiting the different cities, that they put on the best show. So they take, you know, a lot of responsibility for it. And my view is that, you know, they pulled it off big time.
Oh no, it was fantastic. The effort that went in, you know, the turn mill and then the effort, obviously, over in Chicago. Like I've said, I've mentioned Jamie already, AJ Hudson's, and then we seen it at Limerick Junction, and then we saw the tailgate, which you mentioned, which is obviously a very fan-led thing on the Sunday, which was incredible for a lot of Evertonians, certainly from maybe over in the UK, who travelled over in other parts to experience as well. People like Dennis who come from Switzerland and had see, you know, that kind of thing, and we spoke to all of them. So it was amazing to see, and absolutely brilliant. And we have to give the football club credit for putting some of those events on as well, and also Christopher Ward, who'd put money behind the bar in all of them, and you know, we know that they're associated with Everton, a big partner at Everton, and they put money behind the bar and got people drinks and stuff. So fantastic. But the club done more than the other three clubs by far with what they put in, and a big shout out to Mo Magazzatti as well and his team, because he was present everywhere and often running around like a headless chicken. I wonder if he could play on the right wing. I don't know, but he can get up and down.
Give me a shout. No, I think you're right. Yeah, I think the difference as well for me, or my observations, were, you know, the other clubs did a lot of the kind of corporate type stuff. So they were Premier League tournaments. They were contractually obliged to do kind of, you know, the kind of the fan fests or whatever they are. So they seem to focus a lot of their efforts in and around that, you know, when it was the corporate stuff in the mall and stuff in New York and what have you, where my observation is that Everton did stuff outside of that with the supporter groups. And I echo, you know, I think, you know, the work that Mo and Lucy and others in the engagement team, the content team around that, you know, they do deserve a huge amount of credit. And also,
absolutely,
you know, the ambassadors as well, you know, they didn't just,
I was going to mention Darren,
that, you know, Ozzy and Graham Stewart as well, they really took the role seriously. They didn't just
Aidan Heath as well, champion him, Inchy, come on.
Our friend, I think Inchy really took it to extreme lengths on the boat as well. He enjoyed it there, didn't he?
He had a couple of songs, not like Inchy to sing.
But they took it seriously, you know, they spent time with supporters, and again, that's what kind of, you know, builds a connection. And again, you mentioned Christopher Ward. Again, you know, their generosity and support to the events and put money behind the bar was, you know, went down extremely well. So big shout out to them as well. So look, I think for us, it kind of, I feel like it's been another opportunity for us to build on those foundations. I think, you know, what now is, you know, how do we build on that, and how do we, you know, kind of elevate the opportunity that we've got here? We've talked about it many times, and I don't want to look back. We can't change kind of, you know, the opportunities that may have been and have gone. I think we've got to think about, you know, looking ahead and what are the resources and the skills that we can bring.
Can I ask you this? Because I think this was something that was done really well by the football club, by yourself and all the other volunteers, and you know, people like Bridges down in Atlanta and New Jersey, and everything, done a fantastic job. But a lot of it was for our supporters who were already Evertonians, and really cementing that, I think, with the Blues. Do we, looking ahead to the future, do you think that, or are you hoping this is something Everton do regularly now, maybe if not yearly, you know, sort of bi-yearly, by getting over to the States? I mean, you can answer that in a minute about whether it should be yearly. Personally, I think it probably should, but there you go. And secondly, are you mindful of what we can do to grab people? Because you mentioned it before, maybe people who don't know they're Evertonians yet. How do we do that? Maybe, you know, are we looking at that as a strategy? So if you could answer those two for us, so that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I agree with the sentiments. I think that there's been a lot, you know, the amount of work that's done with the existing base and the foundations there. You know, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, look, the Freakins are on record. There was a piece in the Financial Times a few months ago about what they saw as an opportunity to kind of leverage the North American market. And I think they've probably been a little bit surprised by, again, the strength of connection here. So I think you know, that's a good signal. I personally think that there needs to be a balance. I don't think that we should lose our values, lose our roots. I'm from Liverpool. So I think there's a balance there. And I wouldn't want us to see that tip too far one way or the other. But is there an opportunity? Absolutely. I think what we've seen in the last number of years is it's felt a little bit kind of stop-start. So yes, the club's been out here. We've had some initiatives. They invested in an agency at one point to try and realise if that, they've had the soccer schools that have been kind of growing steadily, year on year. So there's been examples of things, but I think if you're serious about realising the opportunity here, you've got to have a medium, longer term strategy. You've got to be consistent around that interaction, to your point, whether it's yearly or what have you. But you've also got to look at different routes and channels and opportunities to make that happen. I don't think you can just rely on a tour. I don't think you can just rely on, growing your soccer schools at grassroots level. You've got to look at what other things can you do, whether that's, through digital routes, whether it's, trying to strengthen the membership, So I think then again, you look at what lies ahead on the broader football calendar next year with the World Cup, how can Everton find a role in that? I know international football isn't kind of, certainly Scousers kind of, number one priority, but, those sorts of platforms, I think, and opportunities are things that we need to do. But I think the shift for me has got to be from that ad hoc, sometimes very good opportunities and events and activations to something that's more sustained. And I think what I hope is that the Freakins, along with the club, can build the foundations, bring a bit of vision, bring some creativity. Hopefully we'll listen to the likes of you, to us, listen to our ideas on how that can be done. And I think you're right. I think it's one, how do you keep strengthening the support that exists across the 45 groups? Because, despite all the problems of the club over the last number of years, and some of these supporter clubs have been in existence for over 20 years, the Chicago one, for example, they've stuck with the club through thick and thin, and they're not going to go anywhere.
More thin than thick.
Exactly. So how do you keep that fan base engaged and keep rewarding kind of that loyalty, so you don't lose that base, because it's really important. But I think to your second question is, how do you reach to those that don't know they're Evertonians yet? Because the opportunity out here is absolutely massive. There are people that are falling in love with the game, getting to understand the game, support the game. I spoke to so many people, even in the last 10 days, that it's only recently they've started sort of watching football and are kind of they're trying to find a club, if you like, and I know some of us might wince at that you don't find a club because we're born to it and all that, and I get it. Or we're 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 miles away, and it's a new sport. There's so many competing sports out here. So those people that are finding football now, we've got to strengthen and broaden that appeal to them. And as I say, whether that's by more consistent activations throughout the year. We do a Toffee Fest event. Now we've done two. First one in Chicago last year. We did one in San Diego, where we've brought Evertonians together. Maybe we can expand that. Maybe, again, with support from the club and the Freakins, we can make that a bigger event whereby we can broaden the attraction to, football circles. How do we get in the community so that, we can interest kind of, the future generations of kids? Again, soccer schools are fine, but they're an annual thing. What are we doing when the kids leave the soccer schools? Are we engaging with them in a way that, draws them to football games? Is the way that we can, tie them into the existing supporter clubs and strengthen that? So look, I think there's lots of ideas and lots of ways, but I agree with you. We've got to broaden that appeal beyond just the existing supporter base.
I think we saw that in Limerick Junction, where a lot of people were just on a night out and walked into a bar that was packed to the rafters with Evertonians, and were like, what's going on here? And people like John Lally, who were getting songs going all over the gaff. I don't know, he might have been a help or a hindrance, but he is great, John, at doing all that. And he's obviously an Evertonian who now lives in the United States as well. But a great opportunity, strengthened for me the belief that we can grow over there. I think we do need to sort of, maybe on the next one, if it's next season or if it's next summer or if it's the summer after, think about how we can target the ones who maybe don't know. And I know there's a few examples, sort of like West Ham paid for an event in Times Square and things. Bournemouth give out free stuff to just try and grab other people. I don't know whether that's something Everton might look into, but this to me was a a really positive step. I mean, we were over in Baltimore and Washington and Minnesota 3 years ago, and that was seeing it for the first time. Sort of blew my mind seeing how many Evertonians were there. This time has only strengthened my belief that there's a real strong fan base there. It's now how do we encourage that? How do we grow it? Yes, a lot of it'll be natural through players. Be great if we could get a couple of young American talents and people follow it that way or whatever. But if that isn't going to happen right now, how do we grow it? Get the team, make the team better. Also keep doing what you're doing and make it accessible. Have we got a supporters club in every single state? Do you know?
No, not in it.
So
in
that's got to be the next aim, really, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
First and foremost, so we've got one in every state.
We're trying to find some Hawaiian Evertonians.
Oh, there must be some. So there must be some.
We'll make a trip there. But yeah, no, look, exactly. Look, I think you're right. And my experience of being out here is like, Americans like winners. And as do we. We want our football club to be successful.
Of course, yeah.
And hopefully we're starting to see, that shift and change, if we can get some more players in and, a bit more stability on the pitch and move up there. That's the aspirations that we're seeing, and hopefully that can do. And again, if we can combine, as I say, the Blues out here have stuck through the club through thin and thin when we haven't been winning. So if we can make that shift on the pitch, then again, you're right, that will only enhance the appeal. But as I say, I think, my appeal to the football club, to the partners, to the Freakins is hopefully you've now seen and experienced kind of what this opportunity, is. I think now, how can we bring the expertise, the insight, the experiences? There's loads of Evertonians out here that have got ideas that, they'd want to share. So how do we combine that knowledge and, that love and the passion and the professional expertise now, as you say, to build a sustainable kind of longer term strategy that embeds and strengthens the existing support, but as you say, grows the opportunity and drags even more people in there. As I say, there's got to be a balance. I wouldn't want to see it tip one way or the other. I feel strongly about it. And we still do lots of the groups. We don't want to lose the essence of Everton, but there's no doubt there's an opportunity. And as I say, my call now is that we combine all of that expertise, love, passion and insight to build something sustainable for the future.
No, listen, just absolutely. I mean, obviously, there's opportunities in this country, in the UK, to grab Evertonians who don't know they're Evertonians, and that's what we have to do. And a lot of it is build, and that was seeing the demand at the new stadium, 30,000 on a waiting list for with season tickets and everything. All of that, ballots to try and get tickets, it's boomed, and we want to make sure we look after them fans. We need to look after our international fans as well and grow Everton's brand everywhere. But the US is a huge opportunity to do that, and we've got American owners, and I'm sure it won't be long before Everton visit Texas, where they're based, and play, either spend a week there and play a couple of games or whatever. So there's an opportunity there. So I'm sure there'll be a big commitment from the Freakin group to want to grow our football club in North America. And the bigger it gets, rising tides are go, tides are good for everybody, aren't they? And that's how we want to grow and keep it going. And I want to say, obviously, we've experienced it coming out there. It was incredible. We were looked after brilliantly. People were fantastic. Stories of people becoming Evertonians when Rafa Benitez was the manager. I mean, how does that happen? And then COVID. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, when you think of all of that's gone on, that people are still choosing Everton Football Club at that time and beyond that. So that is why there is a big opportunity to try to grab that new wave of Evertonians. But a big thank you from us to yourself. I think you do a fantastic job over there, to obviously Bridget and everybody else associated in Atlanta, to the people up in New Jersey and New York and everyone else who is just trying to strengthen this and keep it going and doing the work, liaising with the club to put on these things. I think everyone I spoke to and saw had a fantastic time, and it was great just to be amongst Evertonians out there, whether you're from the UK, and there was loads from Liverpool, loads of Scousers out there. Is Barry Williams made it home? That's all I want to know. But, the likes of seeing him and Jazz out there, and everybody else, but seeing people from all over the United States was absolutely incredible as well, and a brilliant job that you all do out there.
Yeah, well, thanks. We appreciate that. And as I say, I think, you hit the nail on the head there. The best thing about it all was just making those connections and friendships and creating memories, and that's what deepens, the connection even further. And, you mentioned Houston, Texas there. I mean, I think Graham Stewart and Darren Griffiths went over to Houston on the Thursday. They did an event actually at the Freaking Group's facility.
Yeah.
So
Nice,
that was the supporters club, but also some of their employees as well. So again, there's an insight. How do you broaden it beyond kind of those exist? So they're the types of things I think we've got to think about. There's plenty of other ideas that we can do, as I say, in a digital world as well as there's endless opportunities to do that as well. And look, I just want to shout out as well for, Henry and Adrian in New Jersey, Michael and James in New York, Lo, Jamie and...
Lo, what a guy.
Yeah,
what a guy.
In Chicago, Bridget, Chris Hardin in Atlanta and others. I mean, they saw this as a big responsibility, as I said, and, they were so proud, speaking to them afterwards about, hosting kind of, their family, in town was a huge thing. So look, great success. Let's not rest on our laurels. And as I say, let's hope we can build this now for the future and see if we can get something even bigger and better next time.
Fantastic, Tony. Brilliant to talk to you. No doubt you're looking forward to getting back over to watch Everton at Hill Dickinson Stadium, and hopefully everything will grow bigger and better, and we'll have a great future. So thank you very much for taking the time, and I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, Baz, and thanks for your support as well.